This is Dr. Karen, and you are listening to the Are They 18 Yet podcast, where I help pediatric therapists become better leaders so they can make a bigger impact with their services. On this show, I'll share up-to-date evidence-based practices, my own experiences, and guest interviews designed to help clinicians and educators feel more confident in the way that they serve their caseloads, so they can help school-age kids grow up to be successful, kind, well-adjusted people. Hey everyone, it's Dr. Karen, and welcome to episode 82 of the Are They 18 Yet podcast. In this episode, I am sharing the last episode of the Live to Launch series that I did with my friend and mentor, Stephanie Hayes, where we shared some of the behind-the-scenes things that went into the development of my School of Clinical Leadership program. So in this episode, we talk about getting out of your comfort zone. I shared some specific things that some specific habits that I got into during the pandemic and the last few years that I thought needed to be changed. And we get into some specific instances of how we can kind of get stuck in the same old patterns. And so I wanted to share this episode today because I think even though I'm talking about business, I think this applies to a lot of different things. So really excited to share this episode today. I also wanted to share that we are going to be making some changes to the Are They 18 Yet podcast. Obviously, you may know that the introduction to the show has changed. I changed the focus from a primarily parenting focus to really more of a leadership focus for therapists and educators. And so with that in mind, the name of the podcast doesn't fit as well as it originally did. So I am possibly changing the name of the podcast in the near future. So because we're making some changes, I didn't want to spend too much time talking about programs today because obviously the new focus will change how I talk about the programs. But I did want to mention that because we're talking about the School of Clinical Leadership, I did want to mention that if you are interested in that program, if you are a pediatric therapist who feels like you can't make the impact that you want with your services due to some of the issues with the system, and you want to work towards making a change so that you can work in a way that feels aligned and fulfilling to you, then definitely check out the School of Clinical Leadership. Really, it is my belief that while there are real issues with the system, we can make changes by making changes to our own situation and putting ourselves in a position where we have more power and influence. And that's really what I help people do in the School of Clinical Leadership. So to get more information about that program, just go to drkarendudek-brannan.com/leadership, and you'll be able to go to the enrollment page and learn more about the program. I will share that I am going to be making some changes to the program enrollment page in the near future, just to make it clearer. I'm getting a lot of feedback from people about how I'm communicating what the program is. So I'm definitely going to be making some changes to the enrollment page to make it more clear so that everybody knows exactly what they can expect from the program when they go to check it out. Again, that program enrollment page where you can get more information is drkarendudek-brannan.com/leadership. So now let's get into the episode.
We're in our last episode of this live launch today.
Yeah.
It's been fun.
Where does the time go?
Where does the time go? So we talked about what we wanted to talk about today. Mm-hmm. And I think this is so important and pivotal to everything, right? To a lot of what this journey has been about for you. And I really want to hear your thoughts and your kind of narrative. And the thing is comfort levels.
Yeah.
So much of the work you've been doing is about challenging and discovering and trying to move out of your comfort levels. And I think everybody gets stuck here because our brains aren't wired to be okay with fear, right? We're not wired to be okay with discomfort. And the minute, even when we have happy discomfort, our brain is still like, wait, stop. Because
Mhm.
it's that same sort of alert, alert, alert kind of
Mhm.
mechanism.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what's happened in the last week and some of the thinking and some of the conclusions you've kind of come to about this whole process of launching a new program.
So I think it just what happened in the past. So I had the program that was working pretty well, and that was 2015, and it was working, and it was always like, all right, let's, you know, like you want to always evolve and be proactive about that, and always be thinking about the next thing. But every time I would think about the next thing, I would start and then I would stop when it would get hard, or when I would get a little fearful because, yeah, I mean, even just from an income standpoint, things would dip a little bit because I wasn't paying attention over here to this. And, I was trying to go a new direction temporarily, which again, it would have been a temporary thing. And I always just kind of panicked for a number of reasons, again, because of the income, but also just because it was like, it's new, and it's so easy to just go back to what is comfortable for you. And I've been doing that for, I would say, the last like 3 years, honestly. Every time I would try a new thing, it just, and it wouldn't work out, then I would just go back to what was comfortable. Now, I would say that some of those things were legitimate things that I tried and didn't work, and it was probably a good decision to not do them anymore. It's really hard to tease that out. Maybe I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be for whatever reason, but yeah, there are. I think that I've had a lot of really convenient excuses the last few years to not do things that I don't like doing. And I think it's kind of a double-edged sword to say things like, find your passion, do what you love. Or like, people are like, find the job, like you want to find the job that you can do that is something that you would just be doing on a Saturday afternoon. On some level, work is called work for a reason, but also you have to, even if you're doing what you want to be doing, you still have to do stuff that you don't feel like doing in the moment. Like going back to the brain wiring thing, like we're wired for, the immediate gratification when really it's not what we really want. And I can give some specific examples here, but I think that um I just the situation that I put myself in, it was really easy to avoid certain things and justify it because I didn't have to do them, and I didn't always have to push through certain situations that were uncomfortable. And as a result, what's happened is that certain things that I hate, maybe add a little more stamina for, I started avoiding them, and now I'm even more anxious about doing them. Um, and then other thing, like that's kind of what happens where, we
Yeah.
we don't do things, and then it's even scarier. Whereas it's like if we would have just done it, we probably would have been fine. It would be more familiar. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And
I mean, a lot of that.
in my experience, the things that we don't like to do more often are not because we don't like to do them where we have a feeling about them one way or the other. It's because they're not clear to us, or
Mhm.
because we don't know how to do them,
Yeah.
or, and then, half the time there's always some sort of judgment or fear associated with it. But the antidote in any of those cases is to do it, right? Is to take some action
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
see that you're not going to die, right? And see the how much it can actually benefit what you're trying to achieve. And I think when we get in these comfortable places of like, even if they're not good for us, we know that, we still
Yeah.
go back to them, right? We still
I
go
know.
back to them because it's what we know.
Mhm.
And that breaking out and that being in that uncomfortable place intentionally is sort of like not natural for us, but it's also what's necessary. And
Yeah.
you kind of took that finally this week and you were like, all right,
Yeah.
we're changing something up here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Should I get into the specifics of
Yeah, go
what's
for
going
it.
on? So I've always been somebody, I like doing research. I like doing independent work by myself. I can just, if you're like, go write this lit review on this topic on, go read these peer reviewed journals and write a lit review. That's something that's hard for a lot of people. I actually really like doing it. I'm good at it. I could just, you know, go to town on that. Um, if you wanted me to do something that was independent work, research, writing, making content that's pre-recorded, um, I can do that all day long. It'll be easy. I'll get it done quickly. Well, maybe it won't be easy, but I'll do it because it's not that I don't feel a sense of resistance to doing that kind of thing. When I sit down to write something, I still get the feeling of I don't want to be doing this. The blank page is overwhelming. I get all of that, but I've done that process so many times that I know what to do. I understand that I don't need to listen to those feelings. I saw this thing the other day on Facebook. It was on Runner's World or something. I don't know, some running magazine. And it was like, the first mile is lying. And so that's, being a runner, I related to that, where a lot of times you at the beginning, you feel crappy and you don't want to do it, but because you've had enough experience with that situation that you need to just keep going. But then there's these other things that if I don't have experience with it, or it's been a long time since I've done it and I'm feeling a little rusty and it feels less familiar to me, it's like I don't know, for some reason I'm interpreting that feeling differently in this other context, but really it's the same thing. So for me, anything that involves human interaction, I will avoid like crazy, even though it makes me feel like crap. And then I feel isolated and depressed. And this last few years, I used to get, like asked to do speaking engagements, but I've had a very convenient excuse to not do speaking engagements in the last few years. It's like, oh, social distancing, guess I can't go, like super convenient reason to just, hide behind my computer in my pajamas. And obviously, I can't use that excuse anymore, but I still was. Um, but yeah, I mean, there was that. There was also just that I was working in a job where I was like in a school. Had a schedule where I had to meet with clients all day long, and now I'm in a position where I'm self-employed and I'm totally in charge of my schedule and what I do, and I can schedule calls, but I also could choose to not. And so I tend to go towards those things that are comfortable if I don't, notice that that's my default setting. And also something, again, just a convenient excuse at the beginning of the pandemic, it was really easy to get affordable leads through Facebook ads. I could run the ads myself. I didn't have to be that good at it because again, it was just the way that the algorithm worked. It was really easy for me to just get in front of people with ads. So I'm like, why am I going to travel and do all this work when I could just turn on a Facebook ad? It's so much easier. It was like so tempting to just do that instead of doing other things like actually building relationships with people. That is hard and scary and time consuming and doesn't give you immediate gratification. And so I just avoided that. And it's, like I'm to the point now where all that stuff isn't work. Like, you know what? Like we're out in public again. People are doing things in person. I can't make the excuse of I don't want to do stuff in person anymore. Facebook ads are a lot more complicated. I've been running the same offer to the same people for the last 5 years, and I need to mix it up. And every time I would try to go do something else, I would just freak out and throw it away. And now it's like, all right,
I have to make a decision. Like I'm being forced to make the decision now to do things differently.
Yeah.
And that means that I need to get out of my hermit cave. So, and then that's the other thing, is that it's like in the moment, I never feel like doing the thing that I actually really want to do, that is actually going to make me feel better about things in the long run, from a, growing my business, but also just mental health standpoint.
Yes. Um, I know you said that, you don't like the idea of, oh, find your passion. Like there's a garbage side of that conversation, which is
Right.
like, oh,
Right.
do something that I don't want to do something I would spend my Saturday afternoons doing, but I still love what I do. But the
Yeah.
important thing
Absolutely.
is if you don't love what you do, then, and you don't like what you're trying to build a business around, your energy is just going to be like, ugh. And so what we had designed for you was the closest fit to what you wanted. And the important part about that was your desire to have these higher level relationships and conversations and more intellectual conversations, which is not something you get from Facebook ads. Right. And so that whole side of your business, there's no problem with running Facebook ads and continuing to have that sort of part of your business. But this desire to, have these more intellectual conversations, to make these bigger connections, that is going to require you to develop relationships, and it's good for you, and it's going to be helpful for you. And it's the missing piece in your business, is like the people side of the business, the people, and that's what's going to enable you to have this sort of higher level program, and this, that kind of brand that you are going for. So I don't think it's an all or nothing. I think it's yes and.
Oh yeah,
Right.
yes, and like I'm still going to do Facebook ads. I'm working
For
on
sure.
a funnel that like I want this to be so solid and clear in the messaging that someone could come in cold from a Facebook ad, go through the funnel and be like, "Yes, this is for me." But also, I don't want that to be the only thing.
That's right.
Um, yeah, yeah. Again, it's a yes, yes, and or this and this, not this or this.
So then the question starts to become, for those things that we have resistance to doing for whatever reason, right? The dialogue we're really good at creating in our heads. Um, what have you found is working to enable you to start, chipping away, is to start making that a part of your activities?
So, I think one of the things that it was a little bit of a thing that I decided that I needed to do was that I want to do, I think I said something that I will commit to at least 2 minutes a day of doing something that involves reaching out to someone. Um, I said 5 days a week, like on the weekdays. Really, I will end up spending way more than 2 minutes, but I'm just committing to the 2 minutes because I'm doing that to make myself get started, because otherwise I'll get overwhelmed and not do anything.
That's
In the
right.
past, what I've done when I'm like, I'm going to work on outreach and networking and I'm going to like all of a sudden be amazing at this, I would like have this grand plan and I would start doing it, and I would do it for a couple weeks and then I would stop doing it because number one, there was some lack of clarity there and there wasn't immediate results. And there's an accountability piece as well. I think that sometimes the clarity around the conversations, I don't
Mm,
know. I guess I just felt like my conversations before were a little empty and I never really knew how to take it to the next level, like it's just sometimes I just don't know what to say to people. And so I don't do anything. And I'm fine if other people provide, structure and scaffolding. Like I always used to say with socializing and stuff like that. And this has always been something that hasn't been easy for me. I mean, even not business, but just in life in general. Like my mom used to like have to, give me all this help to plan play dates because I wouldn't just do it. I would just go and, you know, play with bugs in the backyard by myself or something weird. But I guess that's not that weird, but whatever. She thought it was weird. But anyways, like if I'm around somebody who's super extroverted and they're like, here, let me plan this party and let me get all these people together, and I'm just there, I'm like, okay, I could do this. Like if it's like somebody reaches out to me or something like that, I'm great. I can be there and I can do it. And when there's this scaffolding there, and that's why I'm like, I'm fine. I could do it when I had a job, but now I'm the one that's in charge. Like I'm making the decisions. So I have to do that. I have to initiate. It's really the initiation is a challenge for me. Because I talk myself out of things. I get nervous. I get worried. Am I going to say the right thing? I overthink it, and then I just don't do anything. And so I think, what did you ask? You asked what was helpful.
Well, you're doing it, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think just realizing that I do that, creating some structure and specific parameters around what I'm saying and what I'm doing every day. And I also think just recognizing that I have in the past just quit on things when I get, like when there's not immediate results, when it feels hard, recognizing that the feeling of not wanting to do it isn't something that I need to listen to. Again, like the first mile is lying. So that's really what I've been telling myself about this. And I think that there are certain situations that I've put myself in where, like when I was doing sales calls all the time, that was super uncomfortable. So again, I did that. I should be able to do this. That was way harder. And that wasn't right for me. I could say that wasn't right for me. I really did. I did that for about 6 months straight. I did like 200 calls.
I can't believe that you did that. You told me that the other day. I'm like, oh my God.
But like, it was a lot and I wasn't good at it and I hated it. And I kept telling myself, I'm going to push through. I'm going to get good at it. I just need more practice, but it just really wasn't for me. And sometimes that's the case. Sometimes you do need to quit, but that's not where I am right now.
And I think, one of the things that we decided to do was that you gave yourself you give yourself too big a goal and it becomes overwhelming. You sit down to do it and you're just like, like the analogy I use is writing a book, right? And if I had on my to-do list, write a book, and that just sat there, I might be doing little things all along the way that are contributing to that or moving me forward. But if I never get to sort of like look at those little things as things I check off my list, it becomes this weight because it's always like, oh, I wanted to write a book and I'm not doing it. I'm not checking it off my list. So I think for your outreach, we chose like five in a week.
Yeah, for now.
Yeah, for now. Yeah, something doable to just start creating the habit. And then we spent some time talking about the specifics of what those conversations would be. So you're not going in there blind.
Yeah.
So try to break down those two bits that would get in the way of you doing the thing that you needed to do.
Yeah. Something that I've been telling myself as well, there are a lot of things that I do, where it's like, it's almost a misinterpretation of some kind of emotional response. And then you label it in one way that's not super helpful. So for example, calling something anxiety or fear, whereas sometimes there's that nervous excitement kind of feeling where you are nervous, but you're also excited and it's positive. And sometimes there's just this really fine line between the two. And so what I've been working on is trying to funnel it in the more positive direction. So for example, I, like I've done sporting events and that's something that's exciting to me. And I look forward to, even though I actually am pretty nervous and I've done it so many times when I've signed up for a race, and doesn't matter how well I've trained, I'm just going to be nervous. Like it's just part of the process. It actually makes me perform better. And so I'm like, wait, this is the same thing as this. Like being nervous about going on a webinar could be the same thing going on that's going on when when I'm doing this other thing that I actually enjoy. And so I'm just like trying to reframe it so that it's like I do this all the time and I'm fine and I'm successful and it's a good thing. So like, let's just take this other thing that I've for some reason categorized as, scary and I can't do it, and put it over here and use this other stuff as evidence that I can. And
That's
that's
right.
kind of where I went with that and what I've been thinking about as I do some of this stuff.
And I think this is also relevant to your clients, right? To the people that
Yeah,
you're actually
totally.
trying to reach, right? Because
Yeah.
they're we just had a conversation about this morning, right? And the speculation that maybe this is a part of what's holding everybody back too, is this the dialogue, the narrative that either I can't do this, or it's gonna put me at risk to do this,
Yeah.
or like change is hard, or change is scary, or whatever the narrative is. And I think that that's definitely relevant to the people that you're trying to reach, and like ironically what you're trying to help them through.
Yeah, it totally is, because I think that I mean, I'm asking clinicians to do things that are uncomfortable. Again, like they see this whole leadership and advocacy thing as I don't know that it's something that's seen as a solution. And a lot of times it's easy for them to default to, like the worksheets and the tactical stuff, which, of course you need to do that stuff and it's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I'm asking them to do the hard work that people don't want to do, that people avoid.
And
I'm
it's not
asking,
because they're lazy,
no,
right?
it's not. I think that sometimes it's belief in themselves that they can
Yeah.
do it, belief in that it can actually help. I'm telling them that, they're in a system that has a lot of constraints, legitimate constraints, but I'm telling them that they can put themselves in a position where they can actually start working through some of these things. I'm not saying that you can wave a magic wand and fix everything, but I'm saying that they can do something about it. But that is something that it's not a quick fix. It's uncomfortable. It's going to be hard work. So yeah, I'm asking them to do the hard work that a lot of people really don't want to do. Honestly, I was thinking about that as I was planning, just some of my content leading into the program as I explain it. And I mean, sometimes I know that everybody doesn't think like me, but I do think about things in the past that have motivated me to take action on things. And something that really works for me is when people are like, frame something as, this is the hardest thing and nobody wants to do it, and I'm like, I want to do that. Like when I was getting my master's degree, you could do an independent study, which is like still a big project. You could do this big test at the end of the year, which I thought sounded terrible, but that's what most people choose to do. It's called comps. Or you could do a thesis, which was like this big scary thing that everybody's like, ooh, thesis, it's so scary. And I was like, I want to do that. Like, I want to do the hardest thing because I want to know I can do it. And so I don't know. I think some people, when you're like, this is too hard, nobody does this. Nobody, it's too much work. Some people are like, watch me. So I
Yeah.
kind of I think I want people who think like that. I think that, I don't know, maybe that message will work. It would work on me. I want to be a badass that does, the stuff that nobody else can do. So yeah, I think I like that idea of just that it is the same thing that I'm helping them do. It's just a different context. I'm helping them
Yeah.
do it in a context where I've done it before, whereas I'm, doing other things over here where it's different for me. So,
And I think the big challenge that I know you've butted up against is, for this group, the belief that that's possible.
I know that is, yeah, for real.
Yeah. And that's going to be one of the things that will likely end up driving some of the content you create and the stories that you tell and what you put out into the world and the conversations that you're having. But this work that you're doing right now, that you have embraced, that you are habitualizing, whatever the word is it habitualize? Okay, good.
Like making a habit, the things that I'm wanting to do right. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's where you're going to start to rather than sitting behind a computer screen and speculating, and never feeling like you have the answers. This engagement, this outreach, this connection is going to help you in so many different ways. But it's also where you're going to find your answers.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I mean, even this week, I was like, I'm going to reach out to my friend over here, and I was like, oh, okay, this gave me some more information that helped me make some decisions. But all I had to do was just like do the next step. That's hard for me. I like to see the whole staircase before I take the first step, and you can't always do that.
Yeah, 100%. And that like I know you've been used to in the past, like these business offers kind of act like systems, right? And if I can plug all the pieces of the system in, it should work.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a human component, right?
Yeah.
There's this human component where you have to learn from people, and you have to, talk to people, even if that ultimately becomes what helps you build another system, like another top of funnel, another marketing system that gets people into your right now, the phase is connection. And we knew that this wasn't going to be like, oh, this is your business forever and it's not going to scale this way. It's more like, okay, this is the phase. This is your research phase. This is your like developing your hypothesis. And that means it's a bunch of unstructured and, undefined work, but it's where the answers lie.
Yeah. The idea of lack of structure and not knowing is,
I know, uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right. But those comfort levels are what keep us kind of in our place.
Well, and it's weird. I was working with this guy in the past, and he told me, he's like, you have your one foot on the gas pedal and one foot on the brake. Like, I actually have a problem with boredom too. And so it's like, I hate this. I'm bored of doing the same thing over and over again. But then, it's like you're working against yourself.
Yes.
It makes you, again, that's the whole idea of like all this stuff that feels good in the moment actually makes you feel worse. Yeah. It's, and got to get to the other side.
It's one of the things that I've heard you talk about too with, where these ideal clients are in their own progression as therapists is they also get bored, right? They get stagnant. And even though there's lots to do, it's possible to be bored and busy.
Oh yeah. 100%. Oh my gosh. I can relate to that on so many levels.
Yeah. And so these people who know that there's some little hint of something can be different, those are the ones you're going to attract.
Yeah.
So that narrative. Okay. So this is our last session in Live to Launch. It's been really fun to kind of just document the process, document what's going on in this sort of launch process. And I say launch in like a bigger context than like an event. I mean, you're launching a program. You launched a program, whether your marketing activity was exactly how you planned, you launched a program. And now I think what's super important for my business audience to recognize is that this is how it happens. You launch a program and then you start to learn about it. That's real. That's real. And like all this garbage that we hear out there in the industry that, yay, we designed this new offer and right off the bat, everybody took it up. If it was very, very close to another offer you've created before, I think that can sometimes be true. You've built a big audience and you understand what they buy, But when you are shifting, and I hate to use the word pivoting, but when you are shifting into something new, this is what happens. We launch and then we learn. We launch and then we learn, and then we launch and then we learn some more. And it takes consistency. It takes time. It takes concerted, intentional effort to find that like that perfect pitch, I guess.
Yeah, I always wonder about that. I just that drives me crazy when people are like, "Well, this other person," like they'll start to tell me why it's going to work for me and like why I'm going to be able to like do this huge launch or whatever. And they're like, "But my client over here, so and so made blah 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 this much money and this launch." And I'm like, "Okay, but where were they? What industry were they in? How long had they been doing it? How long did it take them to map out exactly what they, they knew it? Like, did they know exactly
Yep.
what people wanted and the program was all, and then they did it? Or was it just they made it up and then the next week, and people leave all that stuff out. And that drives me crazy because it is the people that actually do hit a home run on the first try are outliers. And maybe they are the people that are in those testimonials, but they're cherry picked. That's not what most people do. And you're leaving out all of this other context and all of this other hard work that this person had to put in. It's like that. Oh gosh, that story about, it's like, it might be a fable, but it's about the artist. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
Okay, so it's
I mean, you're gonna have to give me a little bit more than that.
Okay,
It was
so
about the thing.
the story about there's some famous artist who's like supposedly in this cafe, and this woman. Do you know what I'm talking about?
It was
Okay,
Da Vinci.
it was Da Vinci. Okay, so somebody walked up to him and was like, "Can you draw me a picture on a napkin?" And so he's like, "Here's this picture on a napkin. That'll be $20,000." And she's like, "But it took you 5 minutes." And he's like, "It took me, 30 years and 5 minutes to be able to draw a masterpiece on a napkin in 5 minutes." Or I don't know what it was, but
it's exactly right.
The whole tip of the iceberg concept of all these people that are showing these overnight success stories that actually took them like way longer. I hate that.
This is what I know of, like
bullshit.
I have clients, and I used to run a group program, and it was 6 months long. And I remember people would it was one of their objections to signing up for it, because they'd be like, 6 months, that's a long time. And I'm like, ha ha ha, I know what's going to happen. You'll get to 6 months and you're just getting started.
That is literally what happened to me. It's been 6 months.
Yep. Not because I think that you're lazy, not because I don't think you can do it, because it just takes time. And I refuse to be somebody who hops on the marketing bandwagon and is like, yay, 6 months and you're going to have a whole new business and everything's going to be wonderful and you're going to be making all this money. I'm like, give me 6 months. I can help you transform, but you're just starting.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's just true. It's just real. And so why set your expectations otherwise and then just feel like shit because you didn't reach what everybody else reached? If you can launch a new offer to an existing audience that you know already, and maybe you sold Instagram Reels templates before, and now you're selling some strategy document for Instagram, that's a situation where that's a quote unquote new offer, but it's like very in line with what you sold before. And it's just like selling a new thing to an existing audience. Different, right? But most of my clients are transforming their businesses because what they had built before was not really well aligned to where they are now. So this stuff takes time, it takes effort, it takes what I know is that you launch your first offer and then you start learning.
Mm-hmm.
If we can just set those expectations more appropriately for everybody, then we can take this pressure off and this feeling of failure that just is so pervasive.
Mm-hmm.
So this is your beginning.
Yep.
What's next?
So, well, I have a big list of people I was supposed to email today that I'm still working on. It's going to be done by the end of the day tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
We said end of the week, so I'm going to do it. And then, I mean, I am continuing to work on the other marketing materials in at the same time, continuing to test things that are similar to some of the things that I was doing before that are still working. It's just that they need another layer to them. They need to the business needs some other avenues aside from just Facebook ads. So those are the things that I'm working on. Yeah, I mean, there's not a very clear event, but it's just the habit of
It's habits.
reaching out to people and like basically just having a list of things that are focused on that initiative every week and just getting through it. I think the other thing that I'm working on is just the whole immediate gratification thing, just focusing on the habit instead of the outcome at this point. Yeah, like just focusing on that instead of focusing on like what I actually see happening right away. I mean,
Yes.
obviously I know where I'm going. I do know what the outcome is, but it's just,
Yeah.
it's not where my attention is at the moment.
Yeah.
But I am still gonna, make a new webinar and, share it with my list and run some ads to it. And then at the same time be, just, yeah, that whole side of it, the networking side, is pretty fuzzy.
Yeah, but it is. And, we've come up with some strategies for conversations that you'll have, but it's one of those things that speaking of discomfort, you're going to have to get comfortable with just kind of going out there and starting the conversations, because not every conversation has to result in an outcome. This is like putting money in the bank, right? You're starting conversations, you're building conversations, you're starting rapport, you're having rapport, you're going to listen, you're going to watch what happens, and then you're going to decide what next steps are, because you can manage your relationships this way too, right? But it has to be natural, it has to be genuine, and it has to come from a place of like pure interest, right? Rather than, templated DMs in an inbox.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is.
No, not at all. Okay. So from here forward, from here till now, you were, you'd focused on building a thing. And now we're focusing on building habits and consistency and mindset and perspective and people, which doesn't mean you don't have goals, which doesn't mean you don't watch sort of what's happening, which doesn't mean that you don't, look for outcomes. But it means that this is like a curiosity phase and you're trying out a bunch of things that you haven't really done before that frequently, right? And I think one of the interesting parts of this process was like giving you things to respond to. Okay, go and look for what it would mean to go get a job. Go look for what it would mean to go and do speaking. Go, and like trying these things out and kind of coming back to it and saying, even if I did these things, I would still come back to this. And that to me was great information.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this has been a super fun series, and I've really enjoyed putting this information into these episodes that will, carry on and last for a while, and hopefully somebody gets some benefit out of watching them and hearing your own journey. And I wanted to thank you so much for being open and vulnerable and honest and being able to talk about all this stuff. And I can't wait to see where this goes from here.
Thanks for coming up with the idea to do it.
Well, it's going to live on, and you can always go back and watch the episodes from the previous episode page. But we'll be watching to see what happens with Karen as she continues on her own journey. But thank you very much for all of this. It's been really fun.
Before we wrap up, I wanted to remind you that it helps us out so much if you leave us a review on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And as always, if you found this episode useful, feel free to share it with your friends. And if you wanted to check out the School of Clinical Leadership, go ahead and go to drkarendudek-brannan.com/leadership for more details. Thank you again for listening, and I will see you in the next episode.